If you've been following at all the Hunter Biden laptop story, you may remember the following news item, which appeared for a day or two a couple of years ago. In February of 2020, a man called Dr. Keith Ablow, who's a psychiatrist and was a fixture for years on Fox News, had his home office raided by the DEA. And during that raid, the DEA took Hunter Biden's laptop and did not return it to Dr. Keith Ablow. Well, apparently, Dr. Ablow had been treating Hunter Biden in a year or two before, and the laptop was in his office, and they took it. They also took his guns. The state of Massachusetts took all of Keith Ablow's guns from his home. Now, the interesting thing is, and never returned those either, Dr. Keith Ablow has never been convicted of a crime. So what was this? Now, we knew Dr. Keith Ablow just from working in cable news, and it's taken us until now to call him, ask him to come on, and explain, what was this? First of all, you're treating Hunter Biden. Second, you had his laptop in your house. Third, the DEA, which is not, we didn't think, authorized to take laptops out of people's homes, it took Hunter Biden's laptop and didn't give it back. What is this? Dr. Keith Ablow joins us now. Doctor, thanks so much for coming on.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Well, so this whole conversation was based on this. I read this in the newspaper one day, and I've been thinking for the last couple of years, like, what was that? And I don't know the answer. I know that you can't, common sense would suggest, talk about the details of your treatment of Hunter Biden because HIPAA laws exist even after COVID. But to the extent you can you explain what this was?
Well, I can't explain why these things were ever taken or why I would be raided, right?
Okay.
But I can tell you that the laptop was one of the items that was taken from my possession, and I never figured out why the DEA would come to my office. I efforted the return of Mr. Biden's laptop to him through my attorney, interacting with the DEA, because that's the responsible thing to do, right? Which is, by the way, why Kevin Morris's theory that Keith Ablow is the source of the laptop originally, he's the leak, is absurd.
Wait, can you just unpack this a little
Yeah.
bit? Because it was, I mean, I just knew you from working for the same company for several years. And I was shocked to learn, or at least read, that you were treating Hunter Biden. So he was a patient of yours.
Yes, over the years I've treated, as you might know, very prominent people, cabinet members and others. You know, illness is a common language. Once you're suffering with something badly,
Yes.
it doesn't matter what your politics are. And Hunter Biden sought care despite the fact that I was the first one on national television back in 2012 to say that his dad might well be suffering with dementia. It was during the vice presidential debates when Joe Biden was running for vice
Yes.
president. I said, I don't know. I think to my eye that he has signs of dementia. And I was roundly criticized and beat up. And I said that on our former employer's air. So it would be thought of as curious,
Very curious.
that he would seek out care from me. But on the other hand, it is really true. Like when you're in the trenches,
Of course.
you go to the person that you think can help, and you leave everything else at the door, as your healer would. So for those who leaned on me, having heard that I had been treating him, and my God, you had his laptop, you didn't give it to anyone?
Wait, but I just
That
just to how
isn't
you
done
connected
either.
with Hunter Biden, of all psychiatrists in the United States, and there are quite a few, do you have any idea how he wound up calling you?
It was by referral. And, you know, this is a closed, well, it's not. It's an open network of folks who have descended in my town. I have a cottage next to mine. They've made use of that at times in order to heal. And
Okay, so you have effectively a guest house
that's
that
right.
people suffering from probably addiction, I would think, or
Addiction,
other problems.
depression, wanting to write new chapters of their life stories, metaphorically speaking, have spent time there. It's very private, et cetera. Of course, not so private if you end up going out to dinner many times, as we did in our town, and if you're a person...
You and Hunter Biden.
That's right, yeah.
It's just wild. I don't know what to... I mean, I knew Hunter Biden because he was my neighbor, which is kind of weird, but we
Yeah.
live near each other, so not that weird. But I just can't. Did you think it was strange when Hunter Biden called you?
Man, not really, because again, I've had people that I've wanted to help and very gratified to be able to help, who have come from far and wide, and sometimes with very different opinions than mine. You know, I was also the first one to say on national television that transgenderism was a very bad idea and that folks shouldn't let their kids watch Chaz Bono on Dancing with the Stars. I said, don't let your kids watch. And then Megyn Kelly said I was spreading hate. Now she's walked back those kinds of ideas. But I've had transgender people come to me for help with depression or terrible anxiety or horrible delusions. Once you need help, that's the equalizer. That brings things to equilibrium. And without, getting too narcissistic, and I have that, tendency, I think I'm pretty good at it, right? And I love doing it. And I love the fact that you don't have to think politically. You don't have to think about someone's past. I've worked with serial killers, right? I worked with the guy who tried to kill me when I first visited him in prison. Why? Because in the end, people have the capacity to be good. It's miraculous, and I love that it's in fact connected to God, that when you use empathy to get to the bottom of someone's real story and heal them, I don't know how to explain that.
But I couldn't agree more. Amen.
I don't know what that is, and it's not located exclusively in the brain. Because that's like saying, well, I know about novels because they're in laptops. No, you don't. The brain is like the laptop. Every experience a person has had from birth affects that individual. And unpacking that for someone, giving them back their story, is incredibly powerful. So if someone came to me addicted to crack cocaine and said, I had horrible experiences as a child, terribly traumatic experiences. And, some are known about Hunter Biden, so I'm not breaking confidence here. If you're in a car and your mother and sister are killed while you're in the back seat,
yes,
you got a lifetime of struggle in front of you.
For sure.
That's the best case, right? If you're not a serial killer, you get a B- in the Ablow School of Psychiatry.
Yeah.
Right? And coming to understand everything from that point forward in your life can free you to do new things. And though there are cynics out there who would say that the man's art is a farce and that he has no talent, I would say, why should that be the case? Why can't you find yourself as an artist later in life? And why say that the things that person creates are worth less? I'd like to have one. I can't do it. I can't do what he does. So, in any case, right? I mean, so that's the way in which I don't like their politics. They are anathema to me. I think the Bidens. I think Joe Biden. I think it would be mass delusion to suggest that Joe Biden is not compromised by other governments. I think that would be mass delusion. But if any one of the Bidens came and said, I need help, I'd say, let's go. Right?
Well, that's your job. That's what
that's
you're
your
supposed
calling.
to do. Yeah.
It's a calling. And it's been a privilege to do that for people.
It seems, again, without asking you about any of the details of your treatment of Hunter Biden, it sounds like when you stopped treating him, I think this is right, the authorities went after your medical license, they took your guns, and the DEA raided your house. Is that correct?
Well, they were after my medical license a little before that, but well, no, that's not. You're right. That's right. It coincided with the end of his treatment, that there was that kind of intense, interest in depriving me of my license. By the way, I've been to court twice. I won both times as to the malpractice things. One was a malpractice tribunal in Massachusetts. I won. Second was an assistant of mine, a former assistant, who said, yeah, he harassed me. I won. Once one article like that goes in the paper, though, the local paper, in this case, the Salem News, people line up. I've treated thousands of people. And even during...
So wait, you're saying there was a witch hunt in Salem?
There was a witch hunt in Salem, exactly. And the truth is, you have to take a hard look at Massachusetts courts, as my lawyer said. He said, Keith, we might win 5 times. But if the jury nullifies the truth in one of those cases, you could be penniless. I settled a few cases because, I don't know, maybe God's saying because you didn't have the cojones. I don't know. But I wanted some safety for my family.
I get it. How, I mean, I think this is relevant to over 100 million Americans. How can the authorities take your guns and not return them without ever convicting you of anything?
A disgruntled former assistant said he doesn't store them the right way.
But sure, people make all kinds of claims. I have no idea how you stored them. I know nothing about it. I just thought that under our system, you had to be convicted before being punished.
Well, you had Eduardo Bolsonaro on your broadcast. I thought it was a brilliant interview. Not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much, because you think to yourself, I'm in Massachusetts. They say if I won't give them the guns, they'll arrest me. I had kids at that time, younger kids. They're older now, a little bit younger, and so I thought, well, I'll get them back. Eventually, I'll get them back. I'm a tough guy. I'll get them back, and likely I will at some point. But no, they've never given them back. They never had a reason to take them. I've never been convicted of a crime. I've never misused my guns. So I was disarmed. I was then raided, sued multiple times, and I've never committed a crime.
How did Hunter Biden's laptop wind up in your office or house?
Well, I think the texts and emails that exist would prove out that, he leaves laptops places.
Yeah.
Right? And despite my saying to him, pick it up, dude, like along with your Loro Piana clothes because they're my size and I might wear them.
Yeah.
Or keep them. He didn't. And so there it was. And it was taken.
So you knew it was in your house?
Oh, yeah. It was locked up.
And you told him you left your laptop at my place, pick it up, and he didn't?
Correct. Multiple times.
And so what happened next? I mean, did you look at the laptop?
No, never. That's why this theory from Hunter's pal and benefactor, his lawyer, Kevin Morris, is absurd, because they could open it up. He has it back, and they could do some sort of forensic look at it. Not only did I never open the lid, I never turned it on. I have no interest in looking at somebody's private stuff.
Well, you were his shrink, so you would know his secrets anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, kind of. I don't have to look at his laptop to know his secrets, and his secrets are safe with me, which is why if you have a lawyer, I've said this before, if you have a lawyer who represents you and you allow that lawyer to suggest that your shrink is a scumbag, then I give you a diagnosis additionally besides cocaine dependence, which is scumbag.
Yeah.
Right? Because that I made clear to a few people who suggested you should have turned it over. Look what you had. You could have helped America. No, you don't understand. This is sacred. This is like a blood oath. If you think I'm going to be on my deathbed and look my kids in the eyes and say, well, I was the one who made it kind of confidential when you go to a psychiatrist. Like I'm willing to die for that. I'm not breaking confidentiality with a patient ever. That's like one of those tripwires where if someone said to you, how do you hope to die? If you had to pick a way, I'd say, well, it would be standing up for a principle and, losing my life over it. If I had to pick, that's a principle that I'd say it's worth.
I get it.
It's worth it.
I agree with you very strongly on that. Yes, that's right.
I know you do. I mean,
so
otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, of course, especially in middle age. Like, you don't need to do it. But Can I ask about the DEA? I thought the DEA existed to like keep El Chapo in check. How did that work? They show up at your place, and do they say, by the way, do you have any of Joe Biden's kids' stuff here?
Nope. Here's how it happened. Never talked about it before. So, but I'm here with you.
Yes, I'm grateful.
You make it easy. No, somebody booked an appointment to come see me for help. It wasn't an appointment coming to see me for help. It was the DEA coming with armed agents.
What?
Oh,
you thought it was a patient? And
I thought it was a patient.
Armed federal agents?
Armed federal agents knocking on the door. I walked downstairs. In order to deal with my own anxiety, which is real, I said, does anyone want coffee? No, we can't have coffee. We can't accept that. It's like, well, that's unfortunate and sort of not very warm of you, but what are you here for? Please, let's just get our work done. So, they go.
But they didn't tell you why they were there?
No, they have a warrant, and they go through everything, my sock drawer, et cetera. And they take everything they want, and they take all your business computers. They took my therapy notes on my therapy. Okay? This is like an Eagleton thing. We're going back sometime here.
Yeah.
Right? And keep it for years. Returned it only recently. Kept it for, 4 years? 3-4 years. Returned it only recently. And, looked through everything, and I've committed no crime, and there won't be a criminal charge against me. It leaves you wondering what the heck.
That's why I wanted to talk to you. What the hell is this? Part
of the American legal system, as my lawyer explained to me, I said, well, let's look at the subpoena. He said, we can only do that if they file a suit against you. I said, well, really? I can't examine what they presented to a judge to be able to come to my office without there being litigation? That's right. Well, that's a problem.
A problem? So it's like a star chamber, and you don't get to know what you've been accused of.
You don't get to know what you've been accused of. Obviously, someone, I'm a Trump supporter in Massachusetts. I should dig a moat around my office, right? I should have like fire-breathing dragons around the office. But they were clearly there to cause me trouble. I mean, here's a funny story. So one of the agents takes out of my desk a vial. The vial has blue powder in it. He looked at me, he says, Doc. I said, it's a long story. He said, it always is. I said, you see that carved bear on my desk? He said, yeah. I said, well, that carved stone bear was given to me by a Native American chief that I treated. And he said, if I feed it ground up turquoise stone, that I will get courage from the bear. And that there's what you have in your hand. I said, by the way, the bear doesn't really eat it. It's a metaphor. I said, but maybe you take it and you test it. And he said, no, even you couldn't come up with that fast.
It's too weird to be fake.
Right? It's too weird to be fake. But when a Native American chief gives you a bear and says, feed it turquoise stone ground up, that's what you do, right? You don't want to mess with that kind of juju.
That's crazy. So they never explained what they were doing there. And
never explained.
They have guns, you don't.
They have guns, you don't. I texted Roger Stone, and I said, man, me, you, and Trump raided. Who doesn't get raided? And because he's Roger Stone, he texted right back, the bad guys.
Yeah. He's right. Unfortunately, he's right. So, and then how did they get Hunter Biden's laptop at that point? So they're going through your house, presumably.
Going through my house. They're like, unlock everything, open everything, unlock everything, open everything. And they take that along with other things. They took my laptop. They took my cell phone. And cell phones and old cell phones. And so that was one of the items. And then I immediately called my lawyer and I said, look, a patient's item was taken amongst the things that were mine. It has a sticker on it. It looks different than mine. It's messy. Mine are clean. This was messy. We have to get it back to him because that's not okay. And that's what we did.
Did they ask for Hunter Biden's laptop, or did they just sweep it up?
No, they just swept it up.
Did they know it was his? Did you tell him?
Didn't tell him.
And yet they returned it to him.
Yes, they did.
Well, how did that happen?
Well, I mean, I did suggest that would be the right thing for them to do. They could have made a different decision given that he was under investigation federally, but they didn't. And so that's their business as to why not. But, it sort of put me in a funny position because I had guys like Garrett Ziegler, who's a far-right guy, saying, Keith Ablow must be in business selling drugs with Hunter Biden. He wouldn't turn over that laptop. He had it all this time. Well, no, it's patient confidentiality.
Well, and by the way, when you had that laptop, I mean, of course, no one knew you had it. No one knew you were treating Hunter Biden, maybe outside of Salem. But you were raided, and that laptop was taken months before I heard the story that the laptop existed. I mean, we first got its contents in October of 2020, and this was February of 2020.
Right. And so, no idea as to motive, agenda. Again, I mean, I did have a disgruntled former employee, maybe one who thinks the laptop had nothing to do with it, would say, well, maybe that person told them that you were selling drugs. They raided a pharmacy in my town at the same time in Newburyport, Mass. Again, no charges. It's run by a very nice guy, Lewis. He's about 85. But in any case...
Did anyone apologize to you?
No, and it's not necessarily over. They never say, oh, by the way, sorry, and you have a clean bill. And
wait, so they can just show up with guns at your house, not explain why they're there.
That's right.
Steal all your stuff, and then never charge you, much less convict you, and then it just kind of hangs over your head.
It hangs over your head, and if I had called my lawyer prior to this, he would have said, absolutely not. You are not going on Tucker Carlson's show because, as you know, you're still under federal investigation, right? And so any doctor in America, if you said, did you ever wonder whether you can call in prescriptions around the country for pharmacies, would say, I don't know, I've done it. Is that a bad thing if they fill it? But if they find out that any single doctor did that, for instance, they can make a beef about it. So this is a way to shut people up, right? Because anybody, right, can be messed with. As Ben Carlson said at the prayer breakfast years ago, if I wanted to get you or you or you, I could do it. He meant the IRS. But there are lots of other ways. And the reason I'm here, aside from the fact that you are the patriot you are, and we were friends back at our former employer, is that I don't like being shut up.
Good.
And it's one of those moments where you think, man, it's safer not to, really safer. But then you got to live with yourself. And that's complicated. So if you allow yourself to be shut up, as most Americans will learn sooner or later, you got to make a choice, right? Whether you're going to speak your mind,
yes,
which is a way of reinforcing yourself. Like the self is connected to God. It's fueled by God. It is God, really, your core, true self. Where did it come from? We don't know. That's good. That means it's incredibly powerful. If you don't speak your mind out of a desire for safety, which I understand, you die a little bit.
I strongly agree. So just listening to you talk, it's like most people, I've got complicated views of psychiatry, and I don't understand it because I'm not a psychiatrist. But I'm hearing you talk about what's inside a person. It's more than just the sum total of chemical reactions in the brain. You're describing a soul. And that is not a conversation that you hear very often, even from psychiatrists. And Sigmund Freud, whose ideas form the basis of psychiatry globally, is in the West anyway, was at the center of the public conversation even 40 years ago, has been disappeared from history. Can you describe what you think's going on there, the change? I've noticed it. I don't understand it.
Well, you're right. Psychiatrists graduating today most often are never in psychotherapy themselves. Many of them could never perform psychotherapy. Most of them are now doling out their time in 10-minute increments to write prescriptions that match one of 300 or more diagnoses that are in the psychiatry manual, the DSM-5 TR, or whatever it's called now, which neatly fit with insurance company reimbursement for those disorders. So all these forces have aligned to crush the heart of psychiatry, which is really about restoring the individual to him or herself. That makes psychiatry public enemy number one.
What does that mean, restoring? I feel like you're saying something very important, so I just want to make sure it's clear what it is. What does that mean, restoring a person to himself?
Well, so human beings really do have inborn talents. They have belief systems that evolve, but they're based upon something very deep. They suffer depression, anxiety, all manner of things when their stories are not known to them. When they think of people, let's say, in the family or others or events that unfolded as beneficial to them when they were, say, very bad for them. They need to recast the characters that they thought were the heroes in their lives and say, maybe not. Maybe when I abandoned myself, my interest, to take a common example, maybe when I allowed myself to not pursue that real passion of mine because I wanted to satisfy people around me, maybe that means that those people didn't love me as much as I thought they did, right? Now, that's an incredible epiphany when that happens. If a man, for instance, is supposed to be an artist and he goes around the globe doing deals to create wealth for his family because he's not sure what else to do because that was assigned to him, that man needs to embrace his art again and reevaluate everyone around him who suggested he not do that.
And I think you're describing in a much more detailed way the phrase you used to hear but never do now, which is be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself is the key to psychiatry, because the truth is now they want to match one or another antipsychotic or antidepressant or anti-anxiety medicine to your symptoms. That can be very helpful. But they forgot the other part, like the 75%, which is you can literally hear voices or see visions based on being disconnected from your core. Right? So you hear these things almost as echoes. Let's figure out, did we somehow play a role? Can we unravel this story? All that's gone because, number one, we're suggesting, look at all the things. A country doesn't need a border to be a country. What? That's insane. Okay. The president, although there's dramatic evidence that he's compromised by foreign countries, he's not, and he makes decisions just in the interest of the United States. Delusion. Craziness. We're being asked to be crazy, and we're killing off psychiatry at the same time because psychiatry is a source of sanity, right? So you look at the president. The president doesn't have dementia. His doctor says so. Well, that is another form of insanity. You're asking me to be delusional. And in order for me to be delusional, I must be cut off from myself or my soul. That's my anchor. And the anchor, again, being a symbol of God, Christianity, etc., right? I'm unanchored now. I'm adrift. What do you do when you're adrift? You cling to anything that offers you safety, that you think offers you safety in a storm. The government. That's what's up. It's so crazy. Freud would be laughing his butt off, or is in the grave, if we ever said, you know, the way that they take care of people who disagree with the status quo, which is about trying to stop sanity, that they accuse them of sexual things. He'd be like, well, yeah, people can't get their minds away from that. And there's all kinds of deep feelings between men and women about sex. If you want to destroy someone, just say that that person is a sexual predator. Look what happened to Trump 30 years ago in a department store. He supposedly attacked somebody. Right now, you have to be very careful because what if I got sued? What if I said it wasn't true? I might get sued by the plaintiff. They shut people up and they ask them to accept delusion as truth. And this sounds like a novel like 1984 because it is.
Well, I have to say it's a very noticeable trend. I haven't heard anyone else note it, but that people who get crossways with, say, the CIA seem to have like a higher than average likelihood of having kiddie porn found on their computers. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. And by the way, this is one reason. There are many reasons I love Donald Trump. But one of the reasons is because on national television during a debate for the first presidency that he will serve, I hope, he held up his hands and he said, and now they're hitting on my hands. And they're saying that because these are small, something else is small. And I'm telling you, there's no problem in that department. And I was up out of my seat. I'm like, Freud would be applauding madly because nobody can do that. You have to be a psychological giant to talk about your private parts on national television and say people say they're small, but they're not. Nobody can do that.
That's a fascinating reaction.
But that's a guy who will say, you know what? They're crossing the border in droves. We're building a wall. Yep, same guy. That's the guy we need.
Why do they call Trump psychologically fragile?
They call him psychologically fragile because it's a convenient way to attack people, to say, oh, he's not well. They also say he's psychologically fragile because if you're looking through a filter that is blurry and misdirected, you might see his truths as him not being well. It's just the truth, right? When he said, even in the van, bad moment, in that trailer or whatever, when he said, when you're famous, you can do this to women. Yeah. Crass, he called it locker room truth, locker room talk. I might say, well, wait a second. It's very weird. But when you're famous and rich, why is it? I would at least open up the question. Why is it that that's an aphrodisiac? Why do men or women allow more degrees of freedom if you're famous, strong, and rich? We don't know that. We should think about that. But what he was saying was joking about the fact that that's not been explained.
And it is true.
And it is true. So people say he's crazy. No. He just told you the truth, but you can't hear it. So you're going to call it crazy, right? The notion that you should vote with paper ballots and they should actually count them. This would seem to be rational, but it could, satisfy the criteria for the DSM-5 TR plus in the future. Well, why are you saying that? Why would you possibly think that there'd be any monkey business with an election? Now, again, you say things like that, and what they're trying to do is make everybody scared of saying anything true or anything that they wonder about as to whether it might be true. Donald Trump is partly the antidote to that because he just speaks the truth almost obsessively. It's almost an obsession that he doesn't adulterate truth, which is why when people would say, well, I'm not sure that he likes minorities, I'd be like, are you kidding me? If you ever said to Donald Trump, I know this black woman who's like, she might be 0.05% more talented than this white male, but, I think you should hire the white male because, it's a white male. He'd beat the hell out of you. He'd be like, what, you want to cheat me out of 0.05% of talent? Are you kidding me? He won't have it because it's all about the talent. It's all about the truth. And there's no hatred there at all for anybody.
And the numbers now show it, I think.
And the numbers show it.
Yeah. So, look, last question. First of all, let me just say I love how interested you are in what is true and how willing you are to pause and ask the first and most important question, which is it true? I mean, I think that, if you're not willing to do that, then you're serving lies. It's that simple. But what can the average person, you just said that part of the antidote is Trump. But what for the average person is not in control of who's president or of much else, actually. So how do you stay sane in a society that demands you lie and is pushing you toward mental illness, which is clearly where we live?
That's exactly right. And part of the antidote, there are several parts of the antidote. One is say what you think and take some lumps. It's okay. You're going to be stronger. Okay? I mean, not everybody can be Donald Trump and defy, wrong-minded courts around the country and the rest of it. Okay. We don't have to be that. But by the way, it's the biggest self-help course the world has ever seen. Just watch him and do some of that. That's going to be as good as Tony Robbins or even a little better. Right? I love Tony Robbins too, but it's going to be just like that, and it's free. So just watch him do what he does. Get a dog. Right? I mean, why? Because
I love these answers.
Right? Get a dog.
You're speaking my language.
Because the dog loves you, and you need to, and you'll have unconditional love for the dog. Right? It's just the truth. Right? The dog isn't lying to you, and you're not going to lie to the dog. I mean, it's big. Exercise. Why? Your body is important, right? I have a friend who talks about posture as the key to well-being. Be in your body. Why? Because they're going to try to take you out of your body at every turn, right? And some of it's technology. Technology is primed to remove you from your body and just say, well, you're really just your profile on Facebook, or you're really just your avatar. Well, no, I'm really not. I really am connected here to my body, and I know it because I go for walks, or, look what's happening. The world's trying to help us. The AMA tried to ban boxing. That's thought of as very quaint now, given MMA.
Yeah.
Because the world tries to reset. It's like, you know what? We better get back in our bodies. Let's have guys have to tap out before their arms or legs are broken. And people would say, well, that's grotesque. It's horrible. No. It's part of the antidote. We need it right now, because otherwise we're going to be evaporated into technology, lies, delusions. Tell people you love them if you really do. That's a wonderful antidote to falsehood. That's an amazing thing, right? If anybody who has a kid, you'd give your left and right arm to save one of their hands. That's the truth. That's truth. Think about that. That'll help you. You might meditate. Meditation centers people. Why? Because it's about you connecting to God, really. I mean, it doesn't have to be a far out thing or an Eastern philosophy or anything else. It's just about you sitting there and realizing, you know what, I'm breathing, I'm here. And then there's some other nice tricks, like if you're feeling troubled, I like to tell people this, if you really have your back against the wall, think of yourself as sitting in a movie cinema watching your own life story. And I like to tell people, how many people, when Tom Cruise is in trouble, throw away their popcorn and say, let's get out of here. He's in a jam. Absolutely nobody. Everyone sits there and thinks the same thing. I wonder what's going to happen. When you're in pain and you've got troubles, all you really have to do to let God do the rest is just say, I'm going to sit here. I'm not leaving the theater. Anybody who's ever thought of, God forbid, taking his or her life, just sit in the theater. It's going to get better. And that's some of it.
Okay, so I've got 6, if I'm remembering this correctly. The first is to speak your mind. The second is to get a dog and experience the unconditional love of the dog. The third is to live in your body, get in touch with your body. You're a physical being. You're not just spirit or mist, okay? The fourth would be to get some quiet and commune with God, or listen, meditate,
yes,
as you said. The fifth would be get some distance, some perspective on your life. Maybe it was just 5.
I'll add a 6th, which is allow yourself to know that you don't know. And, one thing is, my son, during all this trouble, said, Dad, it doesn't seem like you're really dissolving. Like, why are you not more troubled? And I said, look, I am. I'm not showing you. because that's what dads do, okay?
Of course.
I said, but I also look at my own life a bit askance, and I think, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is for. And so if it turns out that at some point in your life, my son, someone thinks they have your back against the wall, and you look at them and you say, go F yourself. I saw my dad go through this.
Yeah.
Then it all was worth it, times 10. And I didn't know that. I might not even be on the planet when that happens. So a little sense of mystery is good, and saying, I don't know why this is happening.
Humility.
Humility, but there's a plan. I don't know the whole plan. It's okay.
Man, I know for a fact, you are the most psychologically balanced and healthy psychiatrist I've ever met by far. I mean that. And I'm just grateful that you came. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Really, you were a good litmus test for whether I would speak my mind, and therefore you've been my therapist. It
For the
worked.
first and only time. Dr. Keith Ablow, thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Free speech is bigger than any one person or any one organization. Societies are defined by what they will not permit. What we're watching is the total inversion of virtue.